Hello everyone, my name is Sam and I talk about my experiences as a queer trans person with chronic illness. If that sounds like something you'd like to hear more about, then please do click subscribe. Today I want to talk about my worry about medically missing something big. It stems from a big mistrust towards medical professionals following years of misdiagnoses and also still not having explanations for some of the things that I'm experiencing. An important bit of context to note is that I have a condition called fibromyalgia. It causes me widespread pain and fatigue which can sometimes be debilitating. The way that it's diagnosed is they basically rule out everything else and conclude that it must be fibromyalgia that explains all of the symptoms. I wouldn't even have my diagnosis if I wasn't privileged enough to have private healthcare through my workplace, who finally diagnosed me with it. I've been fobbed off by doctors since 8 years old and only got a diagnosis at 24, with some things still not being entirely explained, and neither me or my doctor are actually fully convinced that the diagnosis is correct. For years and years of my life, I've had a wide variety of symptoms that could never be explained with generic testing. I'd often go to the doctors with a complaint and they'd run loads and loads of different tests and it would always come back as fine. None of my tests would show anything abnormal and they wouldn't understand why I was feeling the way I was. I even had a period of time in my life, about 4 to 5 months, where I had some kind of heart problem. I had palpitations, I was nauseous, I was really dizzy and generally just feeling really unwell, and they did all of the possible tests that they could for my heart and it was found that there was nothing wrong with it. Eventually it passed on its own, but I still wonder till this very day what actually was going on and why we could never figure it out. The symptoms I experience can vary so much and sometimes be really, really intense. It's really easy for myself, but also for doctors, to be like, it's just fibro. But then you should never ignore chest pain, right? But how often would I end up in A&E if I was to follow medical advice? Pretty much every single time. These days I often don't even call anymore because I know what they're going to tell me, and it's not necessarily helpful. Even if it's not on that side of serious, I go to my GP to express my symptoms, but it happens so often now that it's honestly kind of getting ridiculous. It can feel really difficult not to feel like a hypochondriac when all of these things are coming up for me, but it doesn't make my experience of them any less real. My medical records must honestly be really wild at this point. And something that doctors often don't understand is that people with chronic illnesses, especially if they've had them for years and years, we know our symptoms and we know what those illnesses feel like, which means we do often know if there is actually something different going on that requires attention. And after years of various misdiagnoses, it can be worrying that there might be something that's being missed. When I slipped my disc, I ended up in hospital 3 times because I was literally unable to walk from the pain that I was in before eventually I actually got referred for an MRI. Following some really bad headaches I had, a doctor basically on a whim ordered an MRI scan that discovered that I have an aneurysm. If I hadn't pushed for a neurologist, which I was being discouraged from going to, I may have never known. So I just kind of need to keep pressing every single time there is something new, especially if it's something that can be associated with things that are a bit more worrying. You never really want to risk missing something significant, and it's not worth it, really. It's just tiring to be going to so many different doctor's appointments and go through so much testing to always be told that you're fine and that your tests are good. It's kind of a complicated place to be because obviously you don't want bad results, you don't want to be told that there is something wrong with you. However, sometimes it would be nice to have something tangible that can be medicated or you can be provided some form of therapy for so that it can improve. Because otherwise you are suffering, but no one knows why and no one can do anything to help you. My most recent sort of experience of this, which I'm still kind of going through actually, has been that I had 2 weeks of the worst fatigue of my life. I'm starting to feel a bit better and I have kind of a few sort of highs throughout the day where I have a bit more energy, like right now, but my dips are still pretty bad. This fatigue feels really different to the fatigue that I normally feel with fibromyalgia and is accompanied by some really weird pain around my eyes. The only thing that came back from all the tests that I got was that my vitamin D was a bit low, but the doctor agrees with me that it wasn't really low enough for it to warrant this much fatigue. I have low vitamin D a lot of the time because of my psoriasis, so it shouldn't be affecting me to this level. I've also found out that I had some infection markers in some of the tests that I did, so they want to put me on an antibiotic. And, you know, there is a likelihood, perhaps, that I am this exhausted because I've been fighting an infection and didn't even know it, but again, it's not entirely convincing and doesn't really explain why my eyes hurt. I'm not really looking for a medical opinion here, although if you think you know what's going on, then do let me know, but it just shows how complicated and nuanced these things are. And even when some tests do show up abnormal, it's not necessarily going to explain the thing that you're struggling with in the moment. Anyways, I'll give the antibiotics a shot, I'll up my vitamin D, hopefully it'll improve, but For now, I just gotta keep going. I hope you found this video useful, or really more likely just kind of relatable. If any of you have been in any similar situations and want to share your experiences or have a little bit of advice, then please pop a comment down below. But for now, thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.